Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got an interesting show for you. Oh, yeah, hot seat central, and fans are angry. That's absolutely right. Man, oh, man, we're going to start out with our Florida Gators and Billy Napier, and I'm just going to say it, their special teams suck.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
They're terrible. Probably cost them the game yesterday because having to back up 5 yards and that kick that barely missed, and then they missed an extra point. They did so many bad things in the special teams, and that's coaching. It just is. And Napier's back on the hot seat. He'd gotten off the hot seat for a little while, especially with that comeback to the South Carolina game, which was really backbreaking for the Gamecocks. That kind of put their season in a bad downward spiral. They were already struggling anyway, but having that loss in the fourth quarter at home was crushing. And Florida was feeling a little bit better about themselves, but they've lost 2 in a row. And this one was brutal because Arkansas came in there at, 2-6, really hadn't beaten anybody. And K.J. Jefferson ran all over that defense. I mean, he just crushed them in the second half. He just bullied them.
Quit hitting yourself! Quit hitting yourself! Quit hitting yourself! Glove!
For lack of a better way of putting it, he just bullied them. And the Gator fans are not happy. I am going to say one thing. Their quarterback, Graham Mertz, has played well, much better than I expected, much better than he did at Wisconsin. You know, his percentage is really high. He's making good decisions. They're still not winning very well, though. And let's see what the Gator faithful have to say about it. We're going to start out with High Top Sports. I usually feature them whenever I talk about the Gators.
I think this is the first time in 30 years I'm speechless. I don't have much to say, you know. It's tough. So many feelings, you know. Frustration.
Defensively, at the end, that's
yeah,
fight.
That hurt me. I feel like defensively we just quit. I mean, you had they got the holding call 1st and 20. It's like, oh, giving us a gift, and KJ runs it for 20, just down our throat. Let's get
and
Hollywood
then not
in here.
even down our throat, but he abuses our players on the way down.
Yep. So needless to say, that was a very it was a depressing finish. It's tough when the opponent's cornerback just kind of pushes your defense around. Now, K.J. Jefferson's a big dude. He's about 250 pounds, so he can push around many defenses. But that's tough, especially at Florida. Now, why in the world we can't play like that at the Swamp beats me.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
Some teams just have your number, and we go down there and we lay a big old pile of crap on that field whenever we play there, the Vols. But for some reason, everybody else does fine. Kentucky goes down there and whoops them. I just don't get it. I don't. But anyway, let's also see what another Florida Gator thinks about their performance.
That was a complete and utter disaster of a performance for the Florida Gators. We're going to talk about that piece of crap here on Locked On Gators. Florida loses to Arkansas in overtime, 39-36. And I honestly, I don't even know where to start with my frustration. I don't know. Genuinely, I just got nothing for you.
Yeah, you're seeing that consistently across the board with the Florida Gator fans. They're not happy. A lot of them are just kind of checking out mentally because it's hard. It's hard when your team is struggling like this. And Billy Napier needs an offensive coordinator and he needs a special teams coach. He just does. I mean, that's just a fact. Their special teams is the Keystone Cops. They don't know what they're doing. And offensively, it's just, I'm sorry. He came from the Sun Belt, and he's got a lot of plays that work there. SEC is a different world. It just is. This is not Sun Belt.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
So anyway, that's what's going on with the Florida Gators. And I told you before this season started, I thought they'd be 6-6. If we had beaten them, I think they would have been 5-7. I believe I said that. They're going to probably wind up being 6-6. It's just the way that it is. That's the team they've got. And then next year, they're going to play an even harder schedule than this year, and this year was pretty tough. Next year is a gauntlet, an absolute gauntlet, and they'll probably go 5-7 or 6-6 again, something like that. Probably 6-6. So another year ahead. And Napier, I would think he'll certainly hire an offensive coordinator because that usually gives you an extra year. People calm down a little bit, kind of the way Jimbo did when he brought in Bobby Petrino. But after that, they're going to start just squarely looking at the coach, and that'll be his third year. And if he goes 6-6, it'll be tough. He is recruiting well. That'll help. But again, you got to win, man. Especially in the SEC, you got to win.
I'm sorry, winning. You starting to get the concept now? Oops, winning.
All right, now we're going to talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks. They have been atrocious this year. They barely escaped against Jacksonville State yesterday. I thought they were going to lose that game. They got fortunate at the end because of a fumble that really propelled them. Otherwise, they probably would have lost that game, and that would have been devastating, especially losing to a small school like Jacksonville State. That would have been very rough. Not that Jacksonville State's a terrible team or anything. They're fine. It's just you're an SEC team. I mean, come on.
Hello?
And their wins this year are Furman, Mississippi State, which is the worst team in the West, basically, and then Jacksonville State. So, and then 6 losses. So it is what it is. The Shane Beamer train is kind of leaving the station a little bit, and he's got this deal with the sign stealing that is a possibility would explain a lot how this team magically that was struggling last year looked like they were going to finish up with 4 out of 5 losses at the end of the year and wind up beating 2 top 10 teams magically. And there's a rumor that Michigan had reached out to a team that would be playing their possible opponent in the college football playoff contenders. And, of course, who are they playing but Clemson and UT. So he's got that sitting there. And now he's gone, 3-6. And I don't like his chances with these remaining games either. So it kind of is what it is. But let's see what the South Carolina folks are talking about. And this is the Spurs Up Show. I think I featured this fellow once before. I cannot remember. But this was his take. Now, this was 12 days ago. Things have kind of been really rocky, especially through the last 12 days. But this is kind of what they're saying over there in South Carolina. And they're not all fired up about beating Jacksonville State, I promise you.
Admittedly, we are at a point that I never expected South Carolina to be at in year 3 of the Shane Beamer era. A point in which fans are realistically questioning the future of Gamecocks football under the leadership of head coach Shane Beamer. You go back to the summer, guys. I remember going on different shows and talking with different people, and I was asked about the overall fan morale and the mood of the fan base. And I felt as if Shane Beamer was somewhat untouchable after the way that year 2 ended with back-to-back top 10 wins over Tennessee and Clemson, even with the bowl game against Notre Dame happening. The end of the season success in year 2, coupled with the decision to finally let go of Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, coupling that with the successes on the recruiting trail, right? The approval rating of Shane Beamer was as high, in my opinion, as any coach in college football. And what we've seen this season in Columbia, the turn that we've seen, the shift, the temperature shift, and the mood swing regarding Beamer ball in Columbia has been, dare I say, surprising. And it started after that Tennessee game. And I think what happened, obviously, guys, in year 2, college football fans don't like to go backwards. Nobody wants to hear that, success isn't linear. Nobody wants to hear, you could win less games but be a better team. That math doesn't math for college football fans. And after that Tennessee game this season, the reality very, very quickly set in that was not going to be the case. This was certainly not going to be a 9 or 10 win team, and most likely not even an 8-win team. The Florida game only reinforced that, and the Missouri game only confirmed that. So we now sit at a very interesting place in year 3 of Shane Beamer.
So a lot of the bloom has come off the rose, so to speak, and you can see how important those 2 wins were last year. I mean, that really propelled him into this year and made people think in South Carolina that, hey, this is the way it's going to be. And we don't even know how legit those were. Maybe they were legit. Maybe they weren't. Maybe Connor Stallions helped out a little bit in those. We don't know, but we know based on a report from an individual with direct knowledge that Michigan may very well have reached out to teams that would have been competing against college football playoff contenders. South Carolina being one of those almost certainly. So, it's tough in South Carolina land. Now, he'll survive this because of those 2 wins, even if he goes 4-8 or whatever he's going to go. But normally in a third year, if you go 4-8, you're done. You're toast. But he's got a lot of goodwill built up because of those 2 top 10 wins. So you can see there was a lot of reasons why somebody might want to have a little edge up. But anyway, we'll see. I think he'll make it another year. And then after that, if he doesn't bring it back next year, he'll be gone, almost certainly. All right, now we're going to talk about Jimbo Fisher. Now, of course, he brought Bobby Petrino in hopes of rectifying the offense, which Jimbo's always run the offense his whole coaching career as a head coach. But they were very upset with the offense last year, so he was kind of forced to bring in Bobby Petrino. And I question whether or not he would be allowed to call the plays, and I don't know that he is. I really don't. I think Jimbo's swaying him very significantly, and maybe he lets him call some of the plays, but on the critical downs, he's probably saying, hey, I want you to run this. Anyway, let's see what people are saying about Texas A&M, because he's been on the hot seat for a while. He's the $100 million man, and they're still going to owe him $80 million after this year, and I think they're, 5-4? So let's see what people are saying.
Now, I would venture to guess that most of us have been in that long relationship with a person that we thought could possibly be the one. That relationship that even though it had some exciting times early and we had been through a lot, just ends up dragging on with most of the excitement and those thoughts of actually taking the big leap dissipating. The one we knew would inevitably have to end, but nobody was willing to make the move. Well, that has to be what it's like to be an A&M football fan under Jimbo Fisher. I mean, it's just got to be. I mean, every time a new year rolls around, there's a sign of a spark, maybe in recruiting, maybe it's off the field, and you think maybe if we make it 6 more months, just 6 more months, it'll all turn around and we'll turn into a great story of love and redemption. But it always falls back to the norm. And hell, A&M even tried bringing a new person into the relationship to jolt it back to life in Bobby Petrino. But yet still here we sit, 5-3, 4th in the division, with a hurt quarterback and going on the road once again to face a ranked SEC team. Now, spare me the buyout talk, because let's not pretend that A&M doesn't have the money. And the $9.5 million drop, if they hold on to him another year, to some of these guys is a couple weekends in Vegas with a mistress or two. Now, if A&M falls this weekend, likely on their way to a 7-5 record at best, would it be better to just rip the Band-Aid off and break up? Or will the merry-go-round continue through 2024? Now, as someone who still believes Jimbo could eventually run into a big year, it may actually be better to just get it over with. I mean, I've been one of his biggest proponents, but you got to stop holding on at some point. Because what's worse, the prospect of false hope or the fear of the unknown?
Well, obviously they lost the game, so they're 5-4. And, they're not happy at Texas A&M, very unhappy, and they're ready to do something. But, again, $80 million, are you kidding me? He'll probably get one more year. If I had to guess, I would put it at 60-40, 70-30 that they're going to keep him one more year if he goes like 7-5. But there's no guarantee of that. And I can assure you if he does that again next year, he'll be gone. There's too much money in Texas, too much of that oil money floating around.
Haven't you noticed? You got to be a man to play in my league.
And they're only going to take so much mediocrity, especially with Texas playing well. That's really – here's the thing about rivalries. We think at UT we've got rivalries, and we do. There's Florida, there's Alabama, there's Georgia, all that. When you live in the same state with another team, like Florida and Florida State, or South Carolina and Clemson, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, it's not a rivalry. It's a hatred, and where they're just like this 24/7 because they have to listen to that crap every year. When they lose a game, 12 months of somebody giving you crap. I whooped your butt this time, didn't we? And you got to go in and see this guy at work every day, and he's smug, and he's giving you crap, and then you go to the grocery store and somebody's wearing the hat, and you're just like, oh, I hate that team so much. So that's a true rivalry, and it's a grudge match every year. So having Texas, who's coming in the SEC now, which that makes Texas A&M mad because that hurts them with recruiting. They didn't have that SEC hat to wear every time they walked into a high school. And say, see, Texas over there in that little weak conference. We're over here with the big dogs. Don't you want to play in the best league? See, they're taking that from them, and they're having a better year. So it's very upsetting to them. And Jimbo being owed, why did you do the extension? That extension was so stupid. Anyway, that's Texas A&M. What a mess. And now we got to talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is one Jim Harbaugh. He is on a heck of a hot seat, in my opinion. Now, I don't think Michigan's going to fire him. They'll probably grudgingly try to hold on to him for some reason, especially this season. But this whole thing is going to be tough because what the NCAA is doing now is they're going after the coaches, not the players, not the school necessarily. Now, if you hang on and support that coach, they're probably going to hit the school too. Now, it'll take a while with the NCAA. As I've told you, they move slow as molasses. I think they work a 10 to 2 work day with a 2-hour lunch break in the middle. And every holiday and every weekend, they don't even think about it. So anyway, I think they'll take their time. But eventually, I would be surprised if Harbaugh doesn't get a show cause of some sort, and probably some other coaches too. So that's probably how that's going to play out, which puts him on a perpetual hot seat. And the NFL is going to be right over there. And the NFL, look, they'll act like they're all in shock and awe and all this crap of, oh, we don't want to. They'll take him. They just will. It's all about winning in the NFL. And they might give him a little suspension of some sort, but he could be a head coach somewhere, probably the Raiders. They're looking for a head coach, and he has flirted with them for the last 2 years. Mark Davis, or whatever the owner's name of the Raiders is anymore, it's not Al anymore, is a knucklehead. And, he should have hired Jim Harbaugh to begin with instead of bringing in that moron from the Patriots that has failed already as a head coach. But that's what knuckleheads do. They make bad decisions. So we'll see how this plays out. But Harbaugh is just in a very weird spot, and there's no other way to put it. And especially with this Connor Stalions mess, that's just going to keep dripping out and dripping out and dripping out. I mean, it's the biggest story in college football, and it's going to, especially in the offseason, it's really going to start percolating. So he's going to be dealing with a lot, and eventually he's going to have to talk. He's not going to be able to just say, oh, I can't talk about it. Can't talk. They're going to start really wearing you out with questions, and the Michigan folks are going to get tired of it. What he needs to do is just win every game out if he gets to play them, especially the Big Ten championship, and that would help him. That would be kind of winning's a deodorant. That would allow the Michigan people to really support him no matter what. But if he starts losing, especially if he doesn't have the signals and signs anymore, so they're not going to be as good as they were, then that's a different animal. Because once you start losing, they might get tired of what a mess you are to deal with. But hey, you know what? Connor Stalions took him from a 69% winning percentage to a 91%. They've lost one game out of the last 24. So, Michigan fans, at least you've had almost 3 years of almost perfection. So at least you got that going for you. Anyway, that's our big hot seat central. And I just wanted to cover those 4 coaches. And I knew it was only a matter of time before Billy Napier got back in the hot seat. There's just no question. Jimbo loves the hot seat. And Beamer, whatever. He's not long-term, I don't think. And what old Jimbo's going to do, who knows? That's the biggest mess of all of this. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover the SEC, the NCAA, all this stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit this little button right here. It costs you nothing. Helps me out. I would appreciate it. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.